Part 12. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 111. Chapter 111 Dinner Party at Night. Yuan took advantage of Zhongzheng to make arrangements to return to Nanzhuang. She filled the pond with water before riding back to Nanzhuang with them. All the way back to Nanzhuang, everyone was chatting and laughing. In the evening, Yuan asked Zhongzheng to clean up the open space outside the small courtyard, place a few lanterns around it, set up a circle of tables, and set up 2 fires in the middle. Tonight she made everyone happy, and what her master said must be carried out. When she came back, she gave the meat, wine, and chili in the space to the women who were cooking. After the decoration is completed, the kitchen is also ready for eating. "Fourth Miss, can we serve dinner?" Zhongzheng stepped forward and asked her. "Of course, let everyone sit down." The other 3 village heads quickly asked everyone to sit down. At this time, the deliciously cooked meat and vegetables were brought out from the kitchen. The main seat was left to Yuan. She sat on it and waited for the dishes to be served and the wine to be poured. Tonight she took out the wine and mixed it with 1/5 of the spiritual wine. She is not stingy with her own people. After the ladies in the kitchen had all served their dishes, Yuan stood up with a wine glass. She glanced around them and saw that they were all waiting for her. She cleared her throat and said, "Everyone has worked hard during this period. It's not easy. I don't know how long the drought will last this year. Everyone, just work hard and get through this period. Come, let me toast you." After saying that, she raised her head and drank. Then people stood up and before they could react, she finished the drink. Zhongzheng said, "Fourth Miss, you are really embarrassing us. We are all servants, how can we bear your toast?" He said to the other servants, "We have to thank the 4th lady. Without the 4th lady to buy us, we don't know where we would live a hard life. Here, we are well fed and well clothed. Such a master, it's hard to find her even with a lantern, so let's toast the 4th lady together. Okay, slaves, servants, thank you, miss." They drank the wine and then bowed deeply. Zhongzheng is right. They have a clear conscience. Some of them have already been sold to several owners. They are servants, that is to say, they live the life of servants. They have no clothes, no food, and no good shelter. They have to do the heaviest, hardest, and dirtiest work, and even being beaten and scolded is commonplace. Unlike here, we still have meat to eat every day. We go out to work in the morning, take a break after eating at noon, and call it a day at night. It is not at all like the suffering they suffered when they were servants. I have completely fallen into a nest of blessings. Okay, we are all a family. As long as I have something to eat, I will not let you go hungry. Let's eat and drink tonight." She can't say anything provocative and touching, it just makes her skin itch. So everyone sat down and happily let go of their stomachs. We are all rough guys, and there are no girls here, so the bold manner of eating shows the unrestrained attitude of the villagers. Yuan looked at them, and her thoughts drifted back to her childhood. At that time, the village would hold banquets or plant rice and thresh the grain. The adults would also drink wine from large bowls and eat large pieces of meat. It was similar to this scene. There are also those who gamble on eating, and those who gamble on eating meat, especially those who gamble on eating meat. The big chunks of meat are stuffed directly into the mouth, and the oil on both sides flows straight along the corners of the mouth. Made everyone laugh. At that time, my father came back occasionally, and he would happily eat meat and drink wine with the villagers. He would take her with him every time. Sometimes he couldn't drink anymore, so he would pull her with the wine glass and say, "Here, help me take a sip." The result is that the father and daughter stumble back home like 2 drunkards, and what awaits them is their mother's lion's roar. No matter how angry the mother was, she still cleaned the father and daughter and threw them on the bed. Sigh, Yuan sighed heavily in her heart. She quietly got up and walked to the field, feeling uncomfortable in her heart. She looked at the sky, at that distant earth, wondering how her parents were doing now. Yuan was feeling upset, so she pinched the magic with her hands and simply used the little cloud and rain technique to water the ground. She needed to vent. Zhongzheng saw her leaving the banquet at halftime and thought she was going to the toilet at his daughter's house, so he didn't care. Just seeing that everyone had finished eating and she hadn't come back yet, he didn't disturb anyone and asked the women to clean up while the servants went back to sleep where they should. He ran to the field alone to take a look. No matter what, the master was still a child. What if something happened? When he turned to the field, he heard the sound of splashing water. He guessed that it was Yuan watering the land. This black light was blind, and he didn't have Yuan's night eyes. He tried to shout, "Miss Four, is you?" Yuan was so absorbed in Shida that she suddenly heard Zhongzheng calling her. She immediately stopped and replied, "Yes, Uncle Zone, go back and rest quickly. I'll water the water for a while before going back." Hearing Yuan's tone, Zhongzheng felt that nothing was wrong. He felt relieved and said, "Fourth miss, you are so naked and exposed, please go back and rest early." Yuan nodded and said, "Okay, Uncle Zone, go back." Zhongzheng then went back with peace of mind. Yuan felt better at this time. She vented her depression and felt much better. Since she had nothing to do, she started raining again until her physical strength and spiritual energy were exhausted. She returned to the space to prepare for cultivation. As soon as she entered the space, a little snake flew over and said, "Master, Master," another 20 acres of land appeared in the space. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Are you happy?" Oh, her eyes lit up, and she followed the little snake to the newly appeared ground in the middle of the space. When she saw it, it was really like this, and she was overjoyed. She was really surprised. Number 3 and the people in black have already planted 10 acres of rice, which has grown more than a foot tall. The other 10 acres have 3 acres of vegetables, 3 acres of cotton, and 3 acres of wheat. A large warehouse has been built on the remaining 10 acres. Place the collected grain. Yuan's depressed heart was now gone, and she burst out into laughter. After laughing, she still had to practice. After her spiritual power recovered, she found space to cast the Xiaoyu technique. The next day, Yuan prepared the cultivated pepper seedlings before they came out of space and appeared in the field again. She walked around the field at will and saw that the area watered last night was not small. The crops look very pleasant, the cloud and rain magic cows are full of spiritual energy, the crops are sucking their teeth quickly, and they are all green. She returned to the small courtyard, and Zhongzheng and the others had just gotten up. The mother-in-law made breakfast and laid it out. After she and Zhongzheng ate, they came to the open space outside the wall. "Uncle Zone, let's build the wall first." After careful consideration, Yuan felt that it was not too late to build the wall first and then start the construction. She originally wanted to use magic, but it was on the roadside, so she might as well let the servants do it. She would go and surround it tonight if it was connected to the mountain. It would save a lot of time and she could also practice her spells. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 112. Chapter 112 Deciding to Open Up Wasteland. Zhongzhen nodded repeatedly, "That's fine, just surround it and feel free to plant something inside. Although you can't prevent others from seeing it, you have to climb up the mountain to see what's inside, but you can't see clearly what is being planted." "Old slave, I will start to do it tomorrow. There is a severe drought now. It is faster to exchange grain for shopping than money. Although the stone factories and brick workshops have stopped working, if you exchange grain for it, people will be willing to sell it at a loss." The master and servant returned to Zhuangzi after making their decision, while Yuan took the time to return to space. Little snake, come on, the master wants to ask you something. What's the matter, master? Little snake, I remember you said before that you have a magic weapon filled with water. Take it out and let me take a look. The storage bags that Little Snake gave him before had nothing in them. They were basically empty. Little Snake must have taken out the treasures inside. She didn't believe that there were so many storage bags and there wasn't even one high-end item in them. In an instant, a jade bottle the size of a fist floated out from beside the Little Snake. Yuan grabbed it and held it in her hand. She grabbed the Little Snake and stared at it. The Little Snake was frightened by her actions. Master, what's wrong with you? Humph, what's wrong? The storage bag you gave me before was filled with rubbish. You've hidden all the good stuff, but you still want to keep it from me, eat my stuff, live in my stuff, and you dare to play tricks on me. If she doesn't clean it up today, her surname will no longer be you. She worked so hard to move the water, but this guy didn't say anything even though he had a magic weapon to hold water. Master, master, let go, misunderstanding, misunderstanding, don't you think you have space, don't use it. The Little Snake shouted in his heart, it's over, it's over, it's afraid it's going to bleed heavily today. Stop talking nonsense and hand over everything to me. Yuan squeezed the Little Snake tightly by 7 inches. She didn't insist on the baby snake, it was its own. But he recognized her as his master and even knew that she was cultivating, but he still brought out useless things to fool her. She didn't believe it. There was nothing in the storage bags left by the monks. They were all low-level monks like her. She didn't restrict it in any way and treated it sincerely. Even when it ate the elixir in the space, she didn't say a word. Otherwise, how could the Little Snake's cultivation really recover so quickly after just 2 sips of spiritual spring water? The Little Snake saw Yuan's gloomy face and wanted to resist, but could it? It was originally intended to be a contract of equality, but who knows how it became a contract of master and servant. She is the master and he is the servant, and it is only a matter of minutes to kill him. It was because it was obsessed with it that it took the initiative to sign the contract with Lao Shizi, that's all. If it didn't sign the contract, it could only live until the end of its lifespan. Master, let me go, why don't I give it to you? Yuan saw a look of compromise flashing in the Little Snake's eyes, and she threw the Little Snake to the ground. Master, there are a lot of things, please find a wider place. No, you just need to pick out things that are useful to me and give them to me, and every time I ask you to deliver water, just deliver it. The Little Snake was relieved. It closed its eyes, and many things floated out of it, including several jade slips, various talismans, clothes, and various magical instruments. Yuan put these things on the bookshelf with a dark face, and the bookshelf was still full. When it was almost done, she waved the Little Snake to go out to the mountain to load water and send it to Yufu in Fukan. She was looking at those things in the bedroom. The jade slips she took first were of no use to her, and the Little Snake would definitely not take them out. She took one and placed it between her eyebrows. Sure enough, it contained a complete collection of talismans. Various talismans were explained in detail, how to use them, and how to draw them. She was immersed in various jade slips, and she was so hungry. These were all her vacancies. Although she said she was cultivating immortality, she had nothing except the exercises and a 10,000 herbs classic. When Little Snake is interested in knowing something, tell her something. Yuan spent a whole day and night looking at the space before finishing the jade slips. At this time, she had a systematic introduction to the practice of immortality. Unlike what Little Snake said, there are no people cultivating immortals in this continent. On the contrary, there are quite a few, because this was once a small world where one could reach the stage of spiritual transformation and then ascend to the spiritual world and continue practicing. It's just that the spiritual energy of this small world is exhausted, and the inherited cultivation techniques cannot be continued. They have developed a kind of mysterious energy, which is similar to true energy. That is to enter the Tao through martial arts, let's call it martial cultivation. If you practice to the great achievements of this realm, you can also overcome tribulations and ascend to the spiritual realm, and later you can ascend to the fairy realm. This makes sense. The queen must have Xian Qi in her body. But there are also people who cultivate immortality in this world, but not many. Yuan was not worried that she would not be able to continue practicing. She found that as new land was added to the space, spiritual energy also increased accordingly. Although she didn't know the reason behind the increase in aura, she just needed to increase it enough for her to practice. Since the space can be broadened and aura increased by receiving rewards in the form of gifts, she should farm more and give more gifts now. It happened to be a year of severe drought, which was also her opportunity. Even God was helping her. Thinking of this, she practiced some practice in the space and had a meal, and then came out of the space after it got dark outside. With the space out, she went straight to the backyard, climbed over the wall, and after checking the terrain clearly, she started to perform the earth wall technique from the wall. The earthen wall built by the method is much stronger than the one built by hand. She used Xiaoyu to wash it down, and the earthen wall would collapse when it was scattered. But she washed it down with water from the pond, and it was like pouring it on a stone, without affecting it at all. Yuan thought that the Xiaoyu technique was cast by magic, and the water contained spiritual power, so it was normal for it to break up the earth wall. The earthen wall is as high as 2 people, so there is no fear of anyone climbing over it. However, it slowed down. After an hour, it was only 10 feet away. She was not discouraged and devoted herself to performing her magic. When her spiritual power was exhausted, she went into the space to recover, and asked the 3 pillars to cultivate the seedlings. In this way, by the time of daybreak, it was almost 10 feet long. Exhausted from exhaustion, she quickly returned to the space to eat and practice before leaving the space again. The plan has changed. She has to ask Zhongzheng to lead people to dig out the pond first and plant this piece of land first. She will build the outside piece at night. She couldn't control that much. There were thousands of acres outside, so how much food could be produced would feed how many people? Uncle Zone, Yuan called Zhongzheng when she entered the courtyard. Zhongzheng was about to go out to order bricks and stones. When he heard it was her, he hurriedly ran to the small courtyard. Miss Fourth, what happened? Zhongzheng was so anxious that he felt anxious. No, this is it, Uncle Zone, you take people to the back mountain to dig another pond, and I will take care of the wall. Okay, Zhongzheng breathed a sigh of relief. Nothing happened. Just digging the pond, there is no problem. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 113. Chapter 113. She is the 3 spiritual roots. So Zhongzheng gathered the people together, took their tools, and walked to the back mountain. Uncle Zone, just open a small opening in the back wall. There is no need to go around in a big circle. Oh, that's just right. Zhongzheng led the people straight to the backyard wall. With the strength of many people, each person dug up the courtyard wall with a hoe, creating an opening 10 feet wide, allowing vehicles to pass through without any problem. Yuan asked them to dig a pond at the innermost part. If they could still open it, the fields on both sides could be used. People were digging the pond, but she didn't rest. Since there were very few people coming, she simply used the earth wall technique. She now has an idea. Since there are people cultivating immortals in this continent, there must be children with spiritual roots. She wants to buy them back and let them practice. In the future, they can help her farm and do things that the men in black can't do. Anyway, she has a lot of money, and she won't give birth to babies if she keeps it in space. I will ask the little snake later to take out the spirit measuring ball for measuring spiritual roots, and let her also test what kind of spiritual roots she has. More than 200 people dug a 5-foot square pond very quickly. She saw that half of it was dug out in the next day. She would dig another day tomorrow and level it the day after that. She also built more than 20 feet during the day, making a semicircle around it. She worked day and night by herself, and it probably took more than a month. It took a little longer, but a lot of wasteland was opened up here. Although it was hilly, it was at least about 3,000 acres. At night, the little snake came back and entered the space with her. She told the little snake what she thought, and the little snake agreed with her idea. It took out a crystal ball as big as a small leather ball, with a holder underneath. Little snake, is this a spiritual ball? Yes, master, you can try it, just put one hand on it and let your mind go. Yuan put the crystal ball on the table, put it on her right hand, and let her mind go. After a while, 3 lights of different colors shot up into the sky. A red one, a green one, and a brown one. She knew that these were the 3 spiritual roots of fire, wood, and earth, neither up nor down. Ah, 3 spiritual roots, little snake, why don't I get a single spiritual root, alas. The jade slip says that only one type of single spiritual root can be cultivated very quickly, while the 4 spiritual roots and 5 spiritual roots can be cultivated very slowly, making it difficult to build a foundation. Master, it's good that you have the spiritual roots to cultivate immortality, let's have some fun. The jade slip says that the spiritual root is a very miraculous thing. Not everyone has it. It is a rare thing. Little snake is right. Although he is a little disappointed, being able to become an immortal is the best hope. Others don't have spiritual roots yet. Her spiritual roots are good and not bad, and her cultivation speed is average. If she wants to build a foundation, she can still do it. If she wants to form an elixir, it will be difficult. Yuanying and Huashan can think about it. But Yuan is not worried, nor does she think so. Hard work can make up for failure in everything, and personal luck and understanding are very important as mentioned on the jade slip. There are no absolutes in the world. The space she has is her biggest opportunity, and she will definitely seize it. Who doesn't want to cultivate to a high level? The higher the level of cultivation, the longer the lifespan she also thinks about it. You can live to be 250 years old in the foundation building stage, 500 years old in the golden elixir stage, 1000 years old in the nascent soul stage, and 2000 years old in the divine transformation stage. With this opportunity, not only if you can cultivate to the stage of divine transformation and live to be over 2000 years old, but if you can cultivate to the golden elixir, you can live to be 500 years old. Master, your spiritual roots are still very good. Fire and wood spiritual roots are most suitable for refining elixirs. Your current cultivation level can make low-level elixirs. I know, but if you take too much elixir, it will also cause erysipelas. I don't have time now, I still need to make it when I have time. At least the poison elixir should be kept in reserve. Small snake's skin is numb, poisonous elixir? Why is it refining elixirs? It has snake essence disease. This master is a person who doesn't play by common sense. It quickly made a few haha, that's right. It's better to have a solid foundation in your own cultivation. Stop haha, take a look, find some exercises for me. Others have found them but they don't have the exercises. She will go back to Fukan tomorrow to buy someone to practice with. After a while, when there are more people, she will find someone with spiritual roots. Okay, master, please wait a minute. Just tell me if you need anything later. He held it by the 7 inches without moving, and it found a dozen jade slips in a very dog-like manner. Yuan took it and looked at it. There were both those suitable for single spiritual roots and those with multiple spiritual roots. Let's go out and help me build the wall. She put the jade slips away, picked up the little snake and slipped out of the space, to where she worked during the day. Alas, master, don't mention it, don't mention it. The little snake kept mentioning it to her now, and it had a shadow in its heart. It was really afraid that it would kill it one day. Yuan threw it away. You have so much courage, do you still want to hang out with me in the future? If I can't kill you, what are you afraid of? The little snake felt so depressed that it was really afraid that Yuan would drag it to death again one day. Hey, let's get to work. Wait a minute, master, when did I learn the earth wall technique? Why didn't I know? Oh, Yuan patted her head. Forget it, you go hunting in the mountains, you have to do some work, right? Okay, you can have this. After saying this, the little snake ran away quickly. It's like being chased by a ghost. She curled her lips and started to use the earth wall technique again. Another night was spent behind the wall that she worked so hard for. It was daybreak again, and she entered the space to eat and practice some exercise before coming out. This time she came out in a hidden place. The servants were working in the fields. She called Zhong Zheng and said, Uncle Zhong, please arrange the things at hand and follow me into the city. Oh, okay, Miss Fourth, please wait a moment. Zhong Zheng immediately came to Zhuangtu to give him an explanation. Half an hour had passed when the master and servant arrived at Yaxing in the city. When they entered Yahang, shopkeeper Lu saw them and greeted them warmly. Hello, Miss Yu, what do you need today? If I want to sell some people today, I will buy some if there is a suitable zhuangzi. Tisk, 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 shopkeeper Lu heard it, his teeth hurt so much. Listen, what do rich people call zhuangzi? If you find something suitable, buy some. He smiled and said, yes, of course there is. If you are willing to buy Anking Mansion, zhuangzi over there is better. They are all at the foot of the mountain. He knew that Yuan liked to live near mountains and rivers, while others liked places close to water sources and with plains far away from mountains. Doesn't she know that in the land near the mountains, wild beasts often come down from the mountains to destroy the crops? Sigh, he sighed, rich people are willful, and they don't know what this little girl's family does. They are so rich, they give porridge every day, and they buy so many zhuangzi. Yuan didn't know that shopkeeper Lu was already jealous of her, but when she heard that Anking Mansion also had one, her eyes lit up. Really, your boss also has a dental clinic in Anking Mansion? Shopkeeper Lu nodded. I'll come back to you when I'm done here. Please help me find a suitable zhuangzi in this city. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 114. Chapter 114, Destroy the Temple and Select People. Okay, Miss Yu, please wait a minute. After hearing her words, shopkeeper Lu felt instantly better. If the Anking Mansion's product was completed, he would still get a commission. Their dental shop is very good at this, that is, if you introduce the owner to buy, the business will get the same commission. Shopkeeper Zhang made a lot of money back then. He was very envious at that time. Now it's his turn. They all say that things are changing, and now it has turned to his family. He quickly looked at several villages and immediately told her, it is in the south and west of the city. The village is close to the foot of the mountain. It was specially built by the owner's family for vacation. The village is not big, only 1,000 acres, but there is a small stream that collects water from the mountain, but it is dry now, and the owner just prepared to sell it a few days ago. There are several small courtyards there. If Miss Yu likes them, you can buy them. There is a fruit forest in the village, but it is dry. Since Nance Huang was close to her, this one could be available. She nodded and said, this one is okay. Are there any others? Shopkeeper Lu added, there is a backing village outside the south gate. There is a landlord there who has 1,000 acres of land for sale. But the fields in his village are all rented to villagers from the backing village. The land is good. She shook her head at this. She disliked dealing with people in the village the most. It was not that she looked down on the people in the village, but that many villagers would fight to the death for the slightest benefit. And all of them are not easy to get along with. She has seen them in Yujiakan. Some people are poor and short-minded, and will do anything desperate for a little profit. She said, as long as I am like the Zhuangzi in Nanshuang, I won't have any trouble. If there is no other suitable one, forget it. Let's do this. I will buy the Zhuangzi I just mentioned now. You can complete the procedures later and I will take the people with me. Just move in. Just in time, those children will be placed there, far away from the noise, and their cultivation is just right. If possible, the man in black in the space can be placed there, and he can also help her train those children. Shopkeeper Lu also readily agreed. He asked, is Miss Yu still going to be a person who knows how to play the game? Yuan nodded and said, it's okay if there are people who can master Zhuangzi. Today, I mainly want children under the age of 12, regardless of gender. In addition, there are people who can watch Zhuangzi and women who can cook and take care of children their mother-in-law. Get all the people together at once, buy the children back, and those with spiritual roots will practice the exercises, while those without spiritual roots will be raised first. She wanted to pick someone here, but it was wrong to think about it. Well, Shopkeeper Lu was shocked when he heard about buying children. If he didn't know that Yuan had bought so many Zhuangzi, he would have thought that she was a person who specializes in selling children. However, he was worried that some of the children were too young to find a home, and the remaining girls came to sweep them away. He said, okay, no problem. There is nothing in Yaxing these days, except that there are many people. Shopkeeper Lu immediately called Xiao Si to call the people out, while he went to the government office to transfer the ownership of Zhuangzi. Yuan and Zhong Zheng followed the boy to the backyard. It was Zhong Zheng who chose the people. The children could just buy them. This time, Zhong Zheng had experience in selecting people and picked people very quickly. As soon as he finished selecting people, Shopkeeper Lu came back. Yuan paid the money and led a large group of people out of the dental shop. Miss Forth, please wait here while I go rent a cart. He often goes into the city to buy things and knows where to rent a trolley. She nodded, and then she looked at the people at the entrance of Yaxing. Zhong Zheng took a person to rent a car. This time there are a lot of children, 55, and there are 160 people who are masters of the village. If you encounter them, you will buy them. Soon the two came back and rented 6 carts. After Zhong Zheng arranged for people to get on the carts, he also asked the youngest children to get on his carriage and drive to Zhuangzi. Yuan did not go back with the car. She got on her horse and went to the slums in the west of the city. There were many beggars there, and she wanted to pick them out. There are more than 50 people today, and I don't know if any of them have spiritual roots. She first went to the bun shop and bought 100 buns, put them on her horse, and headed towards the slums. As soon as she entered the street, people on both sides looked at her, their eyes fixed on the buns wrapped in gauze on her horse. The buns were still hot and had a fragrant aroma. If she hadn't been riding a horse with murderous intent emanating from her body, these people would have snatched her away. She walked to the end of the street, and after passing through a small road, there was a ruined temple at the end. There were buildings like this in every county, prefecture, or even town. There are a large number of beggars in every place, and the government has no agency to take them in, so dilapidated temples have become their destination. Before entering the ruined temple, I smelled the extremely sour smell. She turned off her sense of smell and stepped into the ruined temple. When the beggars saw that she was a neatly dressed girl, they all looked at her with wide, dull eyes curiously. She glanced around and saw that the situation inside was indescribably bad. These beggars were basically hanging around. Yuan was confused. Now that he couldn't beg, he could go to his house to get porridge. Why didn't he go? Having no time to ask, she took the bun off the horse and went to a little girl in the corner. The girl looked at the bun in her hand in disbelief and licked her chapped lips with her tongue. Oh, Yuan patted her head. These beggars are thirsty and hungry. Let's drink some water first. If there is porridge, it is best for these people to drink porridge. Her consciousness took out a bowl in the space, which was already filled with water. She brought it to the little girl's mouth and said, "Drink some water quickly, and then eat the buns." The little girl saw that she had conjured a bowl of water out of thin air, but she was thirsty. In the end, thirst overcame her fear. She took the water, ignored it, and started drinking it. Cough cough cough, the little girl choked. Don't be in a hurry, take your time, Yuan patted her on the back. Other people who were lying down struggled to get up when they saw there was water to drink. Don't move, all of you are all doing something to drink. Sure enough, after listening to Yuan's words, they lay back down again. The little girl drank the water, picked up the bun and took a few bites. Then she opened her mouth and said, "Thank you, sister." The sound is like that of mosquitoes and flies, and it is hoarse and unpleasant to hear. It means that one has not had water or food for many days. Sigh, Yuan wanted to touch her hand, stretched it out and then retracted it. Ahem, cough, eat slowly, sister will give them water to drink. The little girl nodded. Yuan brought the water to the next boy. As soon as she got closer, a wave of heat hit her. She put her hand on the boy's forehead. It felt so hot that he was having a fever. She immediately took out a bowl of spiritual spring water from the space and poured a third of it into another bowl. She pinched the boy's mouth and took a sip of water. The confused boy felt the cold water enter his mouth and took a few sips automatically. Yuan simply mixed some spiritual spring water in the water and asked them to drink the water first and then eat the buns. A total of 23 people drank water. Some struggled to sit up after drinking water. She gave the buns to them to eat first. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 115. Chapter 115 Robbery in Broad Daylight. Thank you, little girl, a man who looked to be 40 years old said out loud. Yuan frowned. Uncle, why didn't you go to the east of the city to get porridge? The man took 2 bites and gained some strength. He said, we went there. I heard that only the victims from outside the city were allowed to come to collect the food, but not the people in the city. Have you, did she say it? Yuan's mind turned a few times. She patted her head and remembered that it was indeed she who said this. She also forgot at the time that there was such a group of people in the city. Fortunately, she came here by mistake today, otherwise many people would have starved to death because of her words. When I go back later, I will tell Wang Yuan that he can bring some food to this ruined temple in the next few days. It won't happen from today on. I'll have someone bring it to you. If you're ready, you can go and get it yourself. With tears in his eyes, the man said, Thank you, miss, you are a great kind person. A great virtuous person? She was a bit intolerant, saying that out of sight is out of mind, but when she encountered it, it was just a matter of words, and she said, You're welcome, you can eat slowly. There were still people behind who had not eaten, so she gave the buns to them and received a lot of thanks. After dividing the buns, she gave the remaining buns to the man and shared them with them when they were hungry. She returned to the little girl and asked, Is the little sister full? The little girl drank water and ate steamed buns. She was not afraid of her at all. She nodded, I'm full. Yuan then took out the spirit detecting ball and said, Little sister, put your hand on it and take a look. The little girl looked at the shiny soul-finding ball curiously. She wiped her hands on her clothes before putting her hand on the soul-finding ball. Don't move. The little girl's hand was touching curiously, but after hearing Yuan's words, her hand remained motionless. After a while, 5 rays of light appeared on the crystal ball. 5 spiritual roots. Yuan was a little disappointed. It would be difficult to build up this kind of spiritual roots even when you are old. She thought that if it wasn't too much, she might as well take it. There was elixir in her space, and she could make an elixir for her to eat. There should be a chance for a breakthrough in the future. The little girl noticed the look of disappointment on her face. She was so frightened that she retracted her hand and looked at her in fear. She didn't know why the beautiful sister who was so friendly in front suddenly changed her face. Did she break the beautiful balls? The little girl's movements brought Yuan back to her senses. She regained her composure and said, "Don't be afraid, little sister. Did my sister think of something else just now and scare you?" The little girl didn't say anything, and Yuan asked again, "Would you like to follow your sister?" The little girl lowered her head and said nothing. Yuan continued, "The porridge-giving house in Dongcheng is my house. Do you want to go?" The little girl raised her head and nodded to her. "Haha, a little brat is quite wary, yes, she likes such a child." Other people heard that the home where the soup was being given was hers, and they all looked at her with expectation in their eyes. Yuan didn't say anything. She walked to the boy with high fever. After drinking water, the fever had subsided, but he hadn't woken up yet. She put the boy's hand on the soul-finding ball, and a red light suddenly glowed. "Hiss, Dan Huolingen," Yuan quickly took the boy's hand. "Haha, this trip has a good harvest." Other people were shocked when they saw this scene. The 40-year-old man stammered, "Miss, can I try?" Yuan nodded and walked over. The man put his hand on her. There was no response for a long time before he let go in disappointment. She estimated that this man should know how to cultivate immortality. 40-year-old men have tried it, so she simply asked everyone else in the temple to try it, but no one has the spiritual root. She was not disappointed. There were very few people with spiritual roots. If there were more people, she would wonder if the spirit ball was broken. How to get rid of those 2 people? The boy hadn't woken up yet, so she had to sit in the temple and wait. Fortunately, she had turned off her sense of smell, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to stay. The little girl ate the buns and rested for a while. She came over and timidly sat down next to Yuan, looking at the sleeping boy. "Sister, can brother Shitu wake up?" She looked at her with a worried face and asked. Yuan nodded to her, "Yes, I will wake up soon." Sure enough, an hour later, the boy named Shitu woke up leisurely. He first looked at the little girl next to him, then looked at her and said, "Did you save me?" Yuan nodded. "Thank you," the hoarse and weak voice said again. "No, are you willing to come with me?" Shitu looked at the little girl, and the little girl took his arm. "Brother Shitu, how about we go with the little sister? Her family is a porridge cook, and there is porridge to eat." The little boy looked at her and then at the other beggars looking in their direction. Yuan understood what he meant. "Don't worry, I will send food to the people here." Shitu nodded. "What did the lady want us to do?" "What if?" "Hey, don't worry, I won't let you do any sneaky and unfair things. I don't need you at home." She stopped talking and sent a message to him. If the stone didn't explain it clearly to him, it would probably not follow him. It would be a pity to lose such a good cultivation qualification. She said, "You have very good cultivation qualifications. Come with me. I will teach you to practice. If you are successful in cultivation, just help me protect my family. In addition, after you complete the training, you will have strong martial arts skills and the ability to transmit sounds like me, and your body will last forever. You won't get sick." That little girl also has the qualifications to practice. How about following me? Stone was startled at first, and then fell silent. After a long while, he raised his eyes and looked at Yuan. His eyes were very firm, and he nodded, okay. Yuan took out 2 spiritual fruits with a smile. You have one for each of you. We will leave when you have enough strength. It is getting late. Okay, Shitu took the 2 fruits, handed one to the little girl, and then the 2 of them started eating. After a while, the 2 of them finished eating and sat up with the support of the stone. The little girl supported him sensibly. Yuan also stepped forward to lend a hand, and then the boy stood up, and the 3 of them slowly walked towards the door. The white horse at the door saw Yuan coming out and snorted at her. Yuan understood what it meant. It had been waiting for a long time. She patted her, put a few fruits into its mouth and said, "Squat down." The white horse actually squatted down after hearing this. "You 2 get on the horse." The 2 nodded and slowly sat on the horse. "Get up." The white horse got up again, and Yuan led the white horse towards the city. As he walked to the middle of the street, several tall and thick men suddenly jumped out and stopped Yuan. "Little girl, leave the white horse behind and you can leave," one person said viciously. Yuan glanced at them sideways, and in broad daylight, in full view of everyone, he came out to her away. "Save it, if you want to die, just come up." Yuan led the horse and walked toward them as if they were not there. The horse was so frightened that she buried her head in the stone. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 116. Chapter 116 Recruiting a Disciple. Shitu was a little nervous. He patted the head and said, "Don't be afraid, Xiner, brother Shitu will protect you." Then he stared at Yuan, who was leading the horse forward calmly. He, this little girl is very brave, brothers, please take her down. This little girl is so skinny and tender, he. A few people smiled obscenely and said unpleasant words. As soon as Yuan arrived, several people stretched out their hands to catch her. Before her claws could reach her eyes, Yuan raised her hand and waved them, and they flew out. Plop, plop, the sound of several people falling to the ground, and then the sound of killing a pig. Ouch, my leg is broken. Ah, my waist. My waist is broken. Ah. The screams frightened the onlookers on the street so much that they jumped back inside and closed the door. The stone on the horse saw Yuan and waved his hand, and he flew away and was seriously injured. It's so good, he must learn. He lowered his head and hid the deep hatred in his eyes. One day, he would go back to take revenge. Yuan walked for an hour before returning to Yu Mansion. The porridge stall at the door had been removed and the door was closed. "Come down, we're here." Shitu was looking at the word Yufu when he heard Yuan calling them. The white horse lay down again and let the 2 stone men get down before it stood up. "Sister, are you here?" Xiner asked as she rubbed her groggy eyes. She had fallen asleep on the horse. "Well, we're here." She stepped forward and knocked on the door. "Ah, it's Miss, come in quickly." The porter took the horse's rope. Wang Yuan heard the noise and walked towards the door. He saw Yuan with 2 little girls. "Miss, are you back? Have you eaten?" "No, Uncle Wang, take them to wash first, and arrange for them to rest after eating. Oh, by the way, give Shitu a bowl of medicinal soup, and then bring them over in the morning." "It's Miss," Wang Yuan Gong said. Xiner now opened her eyes wide and looked at the lush flowers, trees, and beautiful attic in the yard. Stone couldn't hold on any more and looked like he might faint at any time. Upon seeing this, Wang Yuan called for a servant to help them go. Yuan returned to the attic. After washing herself, Mrs. Gao brought food. Miss, you must be hungry, please eat quickly. Gao's eyes were filled with distress. Okay, thank you Aunt Gao, how are you these days? Yuan sat down and picked up her chopsticks to eat. Miss, there have been a lot less people these days. I heard that people outside the city and other counties are starting to give out porridge, and there are still many people coming to receive medicinal soup every day. Seeing so much food being given away every day, Gao felt distressed, but at the same time they were also relieved to see so many people not starving to death because of the porridge they gave out. This is called pain and happiness. Yuan listened to what Mrs. Gao said, and sure enough, someone took to heart what she said that day. In a country where imperial power is supreme, no one would gamble with the head on their neck. Whether it is the current Futai master or the officials below, no matter who they work for in the end, the ultimate goal is to live a good life and a long life. Ah, that's good. This Huaiyang prefecture is the hardest hit area. As long as someone extends a helping hand, the victims will not starve to death in large numbers. Yuan finished her meal and practiced in the yard for an hour before she went back to the house to sleep. On the third day, while she was still practicing, Wang Yuan came with Shitu and Xiner. Little sister, are you practicing? Xiner ran towards Yuan. Xiner, Miss Xiner, two voices sounded. Wang Yuan knew that the young lady was most afraid of disturbing her while she was practicing. Shitu knew that was very impolite behavior. How could Xiner, a 5-year-old girl, understand this? Yuan opened her eyes and saw that they were coming. Instead of standing up, she patted the ground beside her. You two, sit down. Uncle Wang, go down and do your work. Wang Yuan knew that his lady had something to do, so he agreed and went down. Shitu sat down embarrassedly, while Xiner happily sat down next to her. Sister, your home is so big and beautiful. Haha, children are children. She looked at Shishi. The expression on her face was quite normal today. After the two children were washed, their facial features were not bad. Just too dark and thin. Stone, can you read? Stone nodded. Sure enough, this child is no ordinary child. Are you willing to learn Kung Fu? The two of them nodded. I am willing to go through hardships like my sisters. Yuan looked at the two faces, which were becoming more and more mature day by day. She said, practicing martial arts is hard and dangerous, and you may lose your life at any time. Will you still learn it? The two men nodded firmly. Then you two are willing to worship me as your teacher. Yes, it means becoming a master. The status of the master is to some extent higher than that of parents. She thought about it yesterday. The two of them didn't have a contract to sell themselves, so she was told them how to practice for no reason, which made her feel unhappy. She has no relatives and no reason to pass it on to them. She is not a missionary mother. It will be different if you take on a disciple. There is a strong respect for obedience and respect for teachers, and the words of the master are comparable to imperial edicts. The two nodded without hesitation. Yuan saw that the two of them had no entanglement from beginning to end, and their intentions were very firm, so she accepted it. Yuan took out 2 manuscripts of the exercises from the space. Of course, these things must have been left to the little snake and the people in black. Those who have not practiced cultivation cannot read jade slips. Seeing her conjuring 2 books out of thin air, Shitu felt certain that Yuan was a very capable person. He was about to become a person like Yuan. He pulled Xiner, and they both knelt in front of her and kowtowed 3 times dong dong dong. Disciple Xiao Shi pays homage to his master. Xiner also imitated and said in a decent manner, Xiner pays homage to the master. Yuan chuckled, it seemed that these 2 apprenticeships were too quick and easy. She hasn't let them become apprentices yet, she just chose them the exercises first. However, she is not someone who cares about formalities. As long as you kowtow to her, You are her official disciple. Okay, anyway, you have kowtowed yourselves and recognized me as your master. Shitu understands the principle of respecting teachers and respecting Taoism, so I won't say more. Senior brother, you can do this. We will go up to Zhuangzi in the south of the city later. It's a good place to practice. After saying that, she gave them the 2 exercises. The stone took it and said, "Thank you, master." Xiner also said sweetly, "Thank you, master." Well, you guys take a look first, and master will practice for a while later. Remember that no matter who is practicing, no one can disturb him in the middle. Xiner smiled sheepishly, "I understand, master." The 2 of them read their own stories, she to read the words, and Xiner looked at the pictures. She continued to practice. After she finished practicing, she said to Shitu, "Stone, go and ask Butler Wang to prepare a carriage. Let's leave now. It's been 2 days. She has to go to the newly bought Zhuangzi and see the 55 children." End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 117. Chapter 117. Someone is coming to make trouble. She still has a lot to do, and the wall has not yet been closed. Shitu carefully placed the exercises before going out. Xiner was flipping through the picture to study it, and compared it with the picture to see that it was different from Yuan's meditation posture. After a while, Shitu came in and said, "Master, the car is at the back door." Yuan took Xiner and stood up, and the 3 of them walked to the back door. Shitu Xiner got on the carriage, and she still rode the white horse out of the back door. After leaving the city, sure enough, there were 4 more sheds outside the city gate giving out porridge. She took a quick glance and walked up to the village. "Hush, stop," the carriage and the white horse stopped. There was a group of people gathered in front of Nanshuang Gate, and 6 or 7 carriages were parked nearby. She dismounted and led the horse over, and stopped behind the crowd. Everyone was chattering, and some people came forward to knock on the door, but Zhuangzi's door was closed tightly. "Stop shooting, we won't open the door," someone said. "What should we do? We can't get water." The concierge said that their master is not here and will wait until his master comes back to solve the problem. "Who knows when their master will come back? Let them open the door and let's go inside and get some water before leaving," someone said. "This is a good idea, let's do it like this. Chen Airway, go knock on the door," someone shouted. Yuan stood behind and listened for a while, and finally understood what was going on. "Who has occupied the water outside the wall? They can't carry water, so they are looking for trouble." She shouted toward the door. Huzi opens his mouth. Everyone's ears were buzzing at the sound of the voice, and they all turned their heads to look at her. At this time, the door opened with a creak, and Huzi walked out and said, "Miss, you are finally back." Yuan glanced at the people present coldly, and said, "If you want water, retreat, wait in the back, and spread out." Everyone shivered because of the air conditioning on her body. "Hey, it's so cold." Everyone jumped on their horses and ran away. "You guys come in first." Shitu had already got off the carriage and watched Yuan shake the people away. After Yuan finished speaking, she ran towards the pond at the back. As expected, there was a lot of noise outside the wall. Zhong Zheng and his men were confronting a group of people next to the drainage pipe. Yuan jumped up to the courtyard wall and jumped to the pipe. "Miss Fourth," Zhong Zheng called out. The people who were confronting them were frightened at first when they saw that a little girl had such good skills, but due to the large number of them, no one retreated. "Uncle Zhong, what's going on?" She had only been away for 2 days, and someone came to cause trouble. She had to see who was so brave. Zhong Zheng said angrily, "Miss Fourth, this group of people is from Dawang village not far from here. They say that Dawang Mountain belongs to their village and they want us to hand over the water source. If we don't hand over, they will demolish it. This pipeline. This pipeline was worked hard by their lady from the mountains. How could it be handed over to them? This is simply a bunch of dogs that get something for nothing. They usually get pink eye when they are asked to carry water. Now that their lady is back, let's see how to deal with these bastards. Yuan turned to look at the group of people. The lineup was not small. There were probably hundreds of people. Everyone was carrying hose, and those holding kitchen knives and hatchets. None of them had plain hands. The leader said to her, "Little girl, what are you watching in the movie? Let's see." The uncle plucks out your eyes and hands over the water source. "Oh, are you going to pick out my eyes?" Yuan smiled jokingly. Suddenly, everyone's eyes were dazzled, and they suddenly heard someone screaming. "Ah, my eyes." The man's eyes suddenly started to bleed, and he immediately covered his eyes. "Bah!" Yuan threw 2 eyes in front of the man. Everyone was shocked. Except for the man who squatted on the ground and screamed in pain, the others all retreated and tried to escape. "Stop!" Yuan shouted at them coldly. Everyone stopped and looked back at her in horror. "Go back and tell your leader, if anyone dares to cause trouble here, don't blame me for killing anyone." "Pa!" She struck the howling man's leg with her palm. Click, a crisp sound of fracture sounded. "Ah, my legs!" the man screamed again. At this time, he didn't know whether to cover his eyes or support his legs. He screamed a few times and then fainted. Everyone gasped, "This little girl is so cruel. Take this thing away and clean this place. Don't pollute my water. Uncle Zone, take the people back and continue working." "Ahem, let's go, Xiaoanzi, let's go back to work." Zhong Zheng and his servants were still frightened. They knew that their master had been in trouble, but they didn't expect to be in such trouble. "This was the first time I saw such a scene," and he spoke with a vibrato. "How did they know that Yuan could kill a powerful man with one move in front of thousands of troops? What is this, just a cunning person?" The people who were making a fuss at the door just now were outside. They frightened Yuan's hands into silence. He fetched water and drove the carriage and ran away. The remaining number 100 people from Dawangjuang were trembling with fear. They were the farmers in the village. How had they ever seen such a scene and such a cruel little girl? They quickly carried the man away under her eyes, dug out the blood with and threw it away before running away. After they left, Yuan rubbed her temples. This trouble came one after another. She had to go back and release all the men in black and guard them everywhere, so that she could worry less. Yuan went to see the pond dug by Zhongzheng and the others. It was almost finished. She went back to the small courtyard, took the stones and walked towards the newly bought Zhuangzi. There is only one way to get there and it is easy to find. It arrived in half an hour. This village still has a front door. I wrote to you Abanchan Villa. The stone was knocked open and the concierge recognized Yuan. The 3 of them entered Zhuangzi, and the servant driving the carriage turned the carriage back to Fukan. The concierge took them into the courtyard. She saw that this village was even better than shopkeeper Lu said. 4 small courtyards formed a quadrangle, with a large garden in the middle. Of course, there was nothing in the garden. There is a pond in the middle of the garden, and a hexagonal pavilion is built in the middle of the pond. Glazed tiles, red painted rafters, 6 red columns, fences and stools on 6 sides, and a stone table in the middle. The design looks good. It's a good place to stay for a short time if you have nothing to do. The lady in charge here was originally the housekeeper of a wealthy family, so Zhongzheng is just the right place to be placed here. There are many children here, and women have to be more careful in their work and think about everything. Seeing that the master was here, Lady Bohua first arranged for them to eat, and then arranged for Shitu and Xiner to stay. Considering that Xiner was the youngest, she took them with her herself. Of course, she knew that Xiner was her disciple. No matter what, Huaniangzi had put her mind into it. "Miss, your room is in the main room, would you like to rest?" Yuan waved her hand, "No, just call the 55 children in the yard." End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 118. Chapter 118 Recruiting the Man in Black. Huaniangzi, "Okay, miss, please wait a moment." After saying this, she went to the row of houses behind the courtyard to bring the children over. Yuan went to the yard first and moved a chair to sit down. Shitu and Xiner came to her side and stood on either side. After a while, Huaniangzi led the people into the courtyard. They stood up consciously, looked at Yuan sitting on the steps, and shouted in unison, "I have seen the young lady." Yuan nodded. "These children have been cleaned and raised for 2 days, and they seem to be in good spirits." Lady Hua also came up and waited beside her. Then Yuan said, "I'm asking you to come here and pick someone among you. Don't be nervous. Just do as I'm told." She took out the spirit detecting ball and gave it to the stone. "I leave it to you. Let them put their hands on it. Those who see the light will come up. Those who don't can just stand outside the yard." Shishita took the crystal ball and said, "Yes, master." "Place the stone down, starting from the first one, and let him press it on the crystal ball. There will be no reaction." There were no more than 20 people. Yuan looked at it without any reaction. She knew that doing so would undoubtedly be like finding a needle in a haystack. "The only thing I can do is give it a try. If this doesn't work, I'd better go to the beggar's den and look for it. It's really stressful to buy so many people to feed." She made a mistake. In the end, there was only one person with 5 spiritual roots, who was 12 years old. "This boy's name is Wu General." When he was introduced, Yuan almost laughed out loud. What name did his parents give him? In the end, she changed it to Wu Sheng. He is the second eldest child and Xiner is the third. This day passed like this. The next day, Yuan asked Cheetah to teach the two of them to read the characters first. The characters were recognized based on the exercises, just like Yu Heiran and the others before. If you read it every day, you will soon be able to understand the meaning of each word and sentence. After the explanation, Yuan walked to the fruit forest at the back alone. The fruit trees were almost dead and the branches were all dry. She immediately used the little cloud and rain technique to water the fruit forest so that it would not die immediately. She would do it again later. There is an open space behind the orchard where vegetables and grain can be grown. She looked towards the wall. There were several wooden buildings built on the side, and a large shed was built in the middle. It would be a good place for the men in black to take the children to train. This will be used as a training base in the future. It happens to be backed by Dawang Mountain and there are no homes within dozens of miles. When you have time, look at the left and right sides of Zhuangzi. It seems that the previous owner created the wasteland here by himself. She can also open up the wasteland by herself. People who live here can be completely self-sufficient. Yuan made up her mind and entered the space in a flash. As soon as she entered, the little snake flew over again, scratching and shouting in surprise, "Master, Master, it's terrible, another 6 acres of that land have appeared. Hey, I haven't entered the space for 2 or 3 days, and I've grown a lot." She and the little snake went around for a while, not wanting to take a look, but just caressing the little snake's roaring voice. Then she carried the little snake back to the cabin and threw the little snake onto the bed. The little snake thought she wanted something again and was ready to bring it out. "Little snake, can you put some poison into the bodies of the men in black? I want them to go out and help me, do you think that's okay?" The poison she made herself is too overbearing. If she eats it outside, she can only live for 1 day without the antidote. Phew, the little snake breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that the owner did not want its treasure. This is okay, is it now? Yuan thought about it and asked, "Little snake, can you move out the wooden building inside? If it is under construction, it will be too time-consuming. It is better to just move this ready-made one." The little snake nodded, "Yes, master. It has now regained a lot of strength and can completely move these wooden houses out." The little snake feels at ease if he can help his master with work and make her happy. If his master is unhappy, he will be miserable. Yuan was very satisfied with the affirmative answer of the little snake. She asked the little snake to deal with the man in black. She took out the space herself, selected the place, and leveled the ground with magic. After looking satisfied, she entered the space again. "How about little snake?" "Master, don't worry, I've given you some hallucinogenic poison to make them think you are their master. They are not monks and cannot cure my poison." "Is there any problem meeting the monk?" The little snake shook his head, "Unless you are a golden elixir monk." "Oh, then I'll be relieved. It's mainly a matter of her space and cannot be exposed. Mortals don't understand, but monks definitely understand. Once you subdue them, you can rest assured." She asked the people in black to go back to their respective rooms. "Master, get ready, when I shout, you will make space." "Good." The little snake closed its eyes, and Yuan could feel the slight shaking of the wooden building. At this time, the little snake shouted, "Get out! Yuan, come out!" Sure enough, a wooden building suddenly appeared where she entered, including a man in black inside. The men in black were so shocked that they changed places in the wooden building in an instant. "This is really incredible. What the hell?" Yuan and Xiaoxi used the same method to move out the other two wooden buildings, training equipment, kitchen, and 5 cooks. 3 pillars still remain in the space. After everyone calmed down, she called the men in black out of the wooden building and gathered in the training ground. She came and said to them, "You are outside now. From now on, you will be assigned tasks. Of course, when there are no tasks, I will send dozens of children tomorrow. You are responsible for their training, literacy, and regular presence mission. Who among you is number 1? Immediately a man came out from the crowd and said, "I am number 1. Okay, from now on, you are the boss, and you will be replaced by Yu Yi, and the others will follow in turn. Do you hear me?" Man in black, "Miss, we heard it." "Yu Yi, I'll leave it to you to arrange the next steps and clean up here. If you want anything, go to Fukan and buy it yourself. In addition, your clothes have all been changed." Finally, Yuan returned them all the weapons and money bags they originally used. Also put a large water tank in each wooden building and fill it with water. After doing this, she returned to the house, just in time to start dinner. In the afternoon, Yuan told Huanyangzi that there were people living behind the orchard and the things they needed. She also put daily items in the warehouse here, leaving Huanyangzi with 1,000 taels of silver notes. At night, Yuan returned to the space, lay on the bed, and breathed a long sigh of relief. The matter of the man in black was finally settled. In the future, people will not be left unavailable. The next day, she and Huanyangzi led 57 children to the back of the orchard and handed the children over to Yu Yi. Only Huanyangzi stared blankly at Yu Yi and the others. She didn't know there were so many people here. "Yu Yi, they are too weak now. Let them exercise first at the beginning." Yu Yi looked at the thin, jagged children, who looked so much like them before. "Yes, miss." "Okay, you can make your own arrangements." She confessed to the beautiful lady before riding back to Nanshuang. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 119. Chapter 119. Bai Zi arrives. In Nanshuang, Zhongzheng and his men leveled the pond. They cut a fork from the drainage pipe above and directed the water into the pond. Miss Forth, you are back, are you here now? Yuan looked at the land. It was uneven. She said, okay, Uncle Zone, you can make arrangements. With a rough patch in the road. So Yuan continued to build her wall. The days went by like this. She would occasionally go to Yueban Villa to see Shitu and the others, teach them how to sense spiritual energy, and then let them try to practice on their own. The master's decision to introduce a sect to practice depends on the individual, and it all depends on their own destiny. When all the seedlings in the village were planted, Yuan's wall was almost completed. At this time, it was already the beginning of April. In previous years, this was the time to harvest wheat. This year's harvest in the entire Huaiyang prefecture is less than 10% of previous years, and now the real famine is coming. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yuan asked the little snake to take away all the strongholds that had been destroyed in Huaiyang Mansion. When trouble is most likely to occur, people's hearts are unstable, and just throwing out some random things can stir up people's hearts. There is a little snake coming out, and there is nothing that can be hidden even 3 feet underground. During this period, the number of people coming to receive porridge at Yu Mansion's gate doubled, and Yuan's pressure increased. Fortunately, 5 acres of land were added to the space, so the food supply was still stable. At the end of March, Bai Zi finally arrived. He boldly dismissed Lord Futai from his post and appointed Magistrate Ma of Daxing County as Lord Futai. With the help of the old fox Mei Futai, Bai Zi quickly opened the granaries in the 6 counties, and immediately released grains in each county and town, and distributed them to every disaster victim. Coupled with the food brought by Bai Zi, the famine in the entire Huaiyang Mansion was temporarily solved. As for the serious problem of water, the government can only help each village and town find groundwater and dig deep wells. The imperial envoy came down and replaced the Futai master. Officials from various places are now cooperating very well, and now everything is going on in full swing. Fukan, Yu Mansion, in Yuan's Ziwan living room, she asked Wang Yuan to hang up the sign. Bai Zi and her were drinking tea. Bai Zi twitched. He didn't expect this little girl to be so capable. Xiao Sier is doing well. This is both Zhuangzi and Zaizi, and he has bought so many servants. Your mother sighs every day, worrying about you being outside alone. Not well fed or clothed. Hey, sir, please stop making fun of the little girl and make a living. After saying that, he spread his hands and stretched out to Bai Zi. What kind of stomach do you have? It's a gluttonous stomach. It's so good at eating. How many Zhuangzi's grains do you need to eat? Bai Zi threw a storage bag to her, then, here it is, as if I want to steal it from you, Yuan took the storage bag and looked at it. Sure enough, it contained food, clothing, other supplies, and 7 letters. Needless to say, they must be letters written to her by Feng's mother and son. How is the capital? Bai Zi rolled his eyes at her and said, what's the hurry? I've only been sitting down for a long time. I heard that there is a water pipe on Zhuangzi outside Nanjing. Can you bring it into the city? Yuan shook her head. I can't take it. The water is too small. When I take it from Zhuangzi, it's all flat land. The section to Fukan is a bit uphill. She was also thinking about going to the mountains in a few days to see what was going on. Bai Zi held his forehead and said, this water is a troublesome thing. It can't be cooked even if there is food. Yuan spread her hands. She was not skilled enough, otherwise she would be able to fly into the air and cast the cloud and rain technique. Looking at his anxious look, she asked, is Uncle Bai now at the 3rd level? We just broke through. What happened? Yuan handed him a few small spells and said, Uncle Bai, practice those few spells when you have free time. They are quite useful. You can practice the small cloud and rain technique first. Bai Zi's eyes lit up. He had been coveting her magic for a long time. He heard Yu Hairan's brother and sister complain every day that the fourth child didn't go back to teach them magic. Today I got it first. Your uncle is also at the first level of Qi training. He is now in love with cultivation. Basically, he brings the prince with him when he goes to court. Oh, the eldest prince has granted him the title of prince. Your brothers are the prince's companions, and Master Shen is the prince. Fu. Your family's restaurant business is so good. Your mother and your uncle have opened Xing Chen restaurant in Nanping, Jiangnan, and Qingzhou. They are making a lot of money and make your uncle happy all day long. Hee hee. And your mother, your brother, and your sister have all reached the third level of cultivation and are about to break through the fourth level. The place behind your attic is simply a holy land for cultivation. Your uncle broke through to the first level there. Yuan listened to Bai Zi talking about things at home, and she wanted to go back. When she heard that the emperor also broke through at her home, she asked, "My uncle won't go to that place, right?" She has space to practice, but Feng and the others don't. If the emperor becomes possessive, they won't be able to keep it. Ms. Feng is not a person who gets hot easily. How could she let the emperor go? Bai Zi knocked on her head. How could your mother give that away? The emperor won't want it. He is planning to abdicate the throne to the prince in a few years and come to your house to practice in peace. Sigh, Yuan sighed, let the brothers and sisters do whatever they want. When will you and my mother get married? Hee hee, it's hard for this girl to still remember, he said, when the disaster here is over, I will get married to your mother when I go back, and then we can go back together. Yuan nodded and said, okay, you two will be old if you don't get married. How can you have children? You girl can say anything. It's enough with you, why don't you call me daddy from now on? Although Bai Zi said this, he still hoped in his heart to have his own child with Feng, even if just one. Which man doesn't want to have a child with the woman he loves? Although he has never rejected those 7 children in his heart, on the contrary, he loves them very much. It would be perfect if they had another child. Those 7 children are also the guardians of their children, and they must be very fond of their little brothers and sisters. Bai Zi thought about it and the corners of his mouth unconsciously raised. Yuan saw that Bai Zi was thinking about good things, so she didn't bother him. When he had thought enough, Yuan said, Uncle Bai, I recently overturned an assassin's den. According to their explanation, their organization is called Destruction, and their men. She told Bai Zi what the man in black said and what the little snake discovered. After Bai Zi listened, he sat still. After a while, he said, Xiao Sier, this matter is very close. No wonder the royal families of the 4 countries often have big troubles. I have also thought about who is behind it. I didn't expect it to be true. It's just that the other party has such a big appetite. It's not easy to annex the 4 countries. As far as I know, except for the royal family of our great Yan Empire, they have no one to rely on, and their royal families are protected by experts. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 120. Chapter 120, Practicing Earth Escape Technique. No one to rely on? He is the weakest chicken. The great Yan Empire is still doing well, but the 3 kingdoms have not thought about carving it up. I'm afraid the royal family has support, but I won't make any noise to you. It means that a person will have a backup plan for himself, let alone an empire. She doesn't believe it anyway. The 2 of them were talking about Kui Zi, and Bai Zi took the magic weapon and left. In the space, Yuan looked at pieces of clothes, pots of food, and letters. Her eyes were moist and her heart was warm. This kind of deep affection is no less than that of parents in previous lives. She was very lucky that no one left her at first, let alone gave up on Feng. This cheap girl loved her no less than her mother in her previous life. She must have stayed up late to make each piece of clothing. Originally, she was not good at handicrafts, but now her stitching lines are smooth and even, and she has practiced it countless times. These clothes are much more beautiful than before. Hey, Yuan breathed a long sigh of relief and fell asleep holding a pile of clothes. The next day, after Yuan had eaten, she went straight to Nance Huang. She still had work to finish. She has built the wall behind, but she has not started on the one next to it. The people outside are only fortified at night. It's really hard to cast spells in front of everyone during the day. She found Zhong Zheng and asked him to buy stones and bricks. During the day, she asked the servants to build them by themselves, and at night she used magic barriers. Once it's done, let Bai Zi arrange for someone to measure the land and apply for the title deed. Sigh, there are people in the court who are easy to do. During the day, while Zhong Zheng was buying materials, she went to the fields in Zizhuang to perform small cloud and rain magic. Standing in the field, she looked at the only thing in Huayang Mansion and felt mixed emotions in her heart. After applying rain during the day, she built the wall at night. In this way, half a month passed and the wall was finally completed. After finishing it, I opened a hole in the wall on the other side and connected it. Yuan had people plant peppers on this land. It was already more than halfway through April, and he was worried that there would be no harvest if he planted more rice seedlings. On this day, after breakfast, she found Zhong Zheng and said to him, "Uncle Zhong, go to the government office and ask Mr. Bai to have someone come and measure the land for us." Now that everything is done, she asked Zhong Zheng to go to the government office to find Bai Zi. She had to let Zhong Zheng get familiar with the government office so that he would know what to do in the future. She was exhausted from doing everything herself. Okay, Zhong Zheng went to the government office with Yuan's letter to Bai Zi. She happened to be on a trip to the mountains, and the water was getting worse every day. She had to see what was going on. She jumped onto the wall, then jumped up the mountain, and then walked along the pipe into the mountain. Along the way, the pipes were in good condition. Occasionally, if some debris blocked the pipes, she would clean them up. By the pond in the mountains, Yuan climbed over the wall and jumped into the spring to take a look. Sure enough, the spring had become smaller, only half of its original size. She got up, went into the space and changed her clothes. She ran deeper into the mountain. She remembered that the last time she went into the mountain, she found another spring, but she didn't know that it was done in the same way. This time when I came in, there were more wild beasts in the mountains, as if they were all out to look for food. This is not a good sign. She killed a lot of large beasts by the way. If these beasts cannot find food, they will definitely come down the mountain, and her village will be the first target of attack. Hunt more, there will be fewer large beasts, and the small beasts will not be hunted out. Large beasts will not go down the mountain if they have something to eat. Looking for the original direction, Yuan quickly found the water source. It was the same as the spring outside, but the water was smaller. She thought that the two springs were probably on the same underground river. Yuan went down the mountain worriedly. If the spring dries up, what will happen to the water? Her Zhuangzi can think of a way, but what about the people who come here to carry water? Oh, my head hurts just thinking about it. Fourth Miss, Mr. Ma sent someone to measure the area of Zhuangzi, and we will get the land deed soon. Mr. Ma said that there will be a drought this year, and the tax will be paid in 5 years from the time the rains return to normal. Miss Fourth, what's wrong with you? When Zhong Zheng came back to report to her, he saw that she looked wrong, and he immediately asked. Yuan waved her hand, "Uncle Zhong, I'm fine. Please pay attention. There is not much water on the mountain. Fill the pond and water the ground as much as possible. Huh, Uncle Zone was shocked, no wonder his master looked solemn. She immediately wrote a handwritten letter and asked Zhong Zheng to send it to the government office immediately and give it to Bai Zi so that he could be prepared. In the government office, Bai Zi read Yuan's letter and walked around the room. He was helpless even when Yuan couldn't do anything about it. Bai Zi still wrote the urgent letter and sent it to the secret guards to return to the capital and present it to the emperor. Even if no one could solve the problem, he had to report it to the emperor. Yuan was sitting in the space room at this time, face to face with the little snake. Little snake, why don't you go underground and see where the water in Huayang Mansion went? It wasn't raining. Logically speaking, the water in the ground shouldn't dry up so quickly. It wasn't summer before, so the sun didn't evaporate a lot of water on the ground. So she wondered where the water had gone. She has seen the geographical map of the Great Yan Empire. This Huayang Mansion is not a plateau. Little Snake nodded and came out of the room with Yuan. After coming out, the little snake burrowed into the ground at a random place. After the little snake burrowed into the ground, Yuan remembered that there was a spell called Earth Escape, which could escape into the ground. This spell requires Earth Spirit Root, and she happened to have it, so she started practicing it. She transported her spiritual power to the surface of her body to form a protective shield, then recited the spell silently and pinched the spell with her hands. Suddenly, she sank into the ground. As soon as she entered the ground, she was surrounded by paint, but she could feel the soil splitting to both sides, forming a passage in the middle, and she followed the passage downwards. When Yuan felt that the spiritual power in her body was not enough, she sank about 10 feet. She pinched the magic spell with her hands, recited the oral spell silently, and then rushed towards the ground. Hoo, Yuan came out of the field and took a big breath of air. This escape technique is easy to use and is also the best magical skill for escaping, but it requires too much spiritual energy. After she recovered her spiritual power, she continued to practice. She was having a great time drilling left, right, up and down underground. One day later, the little snake has not come back yet, and Yuan has become quite proficient in his escape skills. 2 days later, Yuan used Earth Escape to escape to Banya Villa. The speed of this Earth Escape technique is almost the same as using the light body technique on the ground. It takes less than half an hour to reach the vicinity of the villa. Yuan got out of the ground, came to the door and knocked on the door. After the concierge opened the door, she went in and walked straight to the back of the orchard. "Miss, you are here, you saw her." "Well, don't say anything." She stood aside and watched them train. In the training shed, dozens of children are practicing close combat skills. Children have flexible bodies, and their small bodies can be seen flying around the training ground, sometimes attacking and sometimes avoiding. End of this chapter.